I'd like to introduce you to Fabricio. It's lovely to have you here, all the way from Brazil. I think that's fantastic. So we're literally on the opposite sides of the world.
Thank you for the invitation. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here, Deirdre.
That's great. That's great. Okay. Okay. So I'd like to know a little bit about you. Tell me about what your interests are, a bit of your background, your family, your hobbies, just something that you would like to share with the public that would just tell them a little bit more about who you are and what you stand for.
All right. I have my own consulting company. I work as a consultant and trainer, usually for big companies, helping them to organize their methodology, the way of working, to understand some big projects, doing some strategic business analysis. And I became an expert in business analysis from the last 2 decades. I have been working as a teacher in this field for 2 decades, related to business analysis, business architecture, system analysis, process analysis, stuff's related to this area, because it all relates, right? You know very well how all those subjects are connected. But I really got in love with business analysis, and I was the first Latin American certified business analyst professional.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's good.
That was in 2008. And probably because of that, I started working more close to the International Institute of Business Analysis. I ran the chapter of Brazil, the IIBA Brazilian chapter, during more than a decade as the president. And I finally last year could pass the stick to another president. But I'm still a volunteer of the chapter. I today have a role in the International Institute of Business Analysis as a senior advisor for the president, and I have represented IIBA in some international events. So I'm very engaged into this field. And I have a hobby, you asked for it, that is making videos. I love to make videos. I do it since I was a kid. And when I was a teenager, I used it to have my camcorder and was recording everywhere and creating videos. I used to say that I was a YouTuber before YouTube exists.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
It was natural to come back to YouTube and start making videos. So I have 2 channels on YouTube, one in Portuguese with my name, Fabricio Laguna, and another one with videos in English, where I'm called The Brazilian BA. That's my brand international. I have a website, The Brazilian BA, where I put some articles, videos, and a lot of content related to business analysis there. So I think that's an overview of some part of it.
You got some really great content and interviews. Of course, I only really look at the English ones from my perspective because I'm not as multilingual as you are, but really great stuff that you got out there. So that's really awesome.
Thank you very much.
And how did you actually start in your career? So where did your path start? Did you decide one day you're just going to be a business analyst, which I doubt, because I think that only became a thing, right, in the 2000s. But how did you get to where you are today?
Well, there are some turning points that are important. So I studied computer science, and when I left school, or left the university, I was working as a developer, a programmer, a coder, right? Someone who coded.
Yeah.
And I was programming what was the new language, the top of the wand. I was on the spike of the wave, programming this new language called Java. It was really new, and starting to do some stuff for the web. So also new stuff. It was the last millennium. And I was part of a project, and there was this very old guy with white hair working in this project, and he used it to do the analysis and tell me what I had to develop. And I saw that he didn't know how to program in Java, and he didn't know all things about new technology, but he knew some stuff that was very more valuable than what I knew. He could interact with people. He could put a lot of people in a room, talk with those people, and leave the room with everybody knowing what they need to do, what's important, what's valuable for that organization, and arranging those ideas in an organized way where we could develop a solution. And I thought that was amazing. And I started talking that if I wanted to have a job when I was white hair as he was, I should probably have to change my skills because Java would not be the language for
Yeah.
forever. Yes, so it will change, and technology changes very fast. So it's very hard to keep on track of technology. It's very volatile, right? But knowing how to deal with people to understand business, that's not as volatile, and you can increment your knowledge skills more and more. At some point in this project, this old guy, he said to me, "Oh, Fabricio, I have to take another project, and you will be responsible to talk with the users and decide what have to be done." And I said, "Oh, but I can't do that. I'm just a programmer." And he said, "Don't ever say that again, because a programmer is just oh, sorry. An analyst is a programmer who got a lot of punches in his head and learned how to do it. So that's what you have to do. You have to learn." And I decided that was important for me, and I decided to start talking about business. Right. This was one important part. Some years later, I had my own business, my own software house with a partner. And my partner was a guy who studied with me in the university. He was very good technically, but he was very shy. And so one of us had to go to the customers and understand what they need. And as I was the communication guy of the team, I was used to go there. At some point, I discovered that to to run a business, it's not enough to know how to develop software. And I started studying a little more to run my business. And I made an MBA, a Master in Business Administration. And at certain aspect, it was a frustration because my company was too small, and an MBA is designed for big companies. They talk about human resources department, financial department, marketing department. I had me, my partner, and two other developers that use it to work for. From this perspective, it was not good, but I remember that I was in a meeting with a customer, and there were people from different departments on that meeting. People from marketing, people from sales, people from products, and they were discussing what they need to develop. And me, as the software house guy, was taking notes and trying to design some screen or some database. And at some point, I said, "Oh, but that solution is not the solution most valuable for our business." When I spoke that, I got scared. What am I saying? And I felt that the things I was learning in my MBA was changing my mindset. I was not just the developer anymore. I was not just the guy that studied computer science. I was also studying business administration. I was also studying marketing, finances. I was talking about value. So that changed the way I was seeing the world of my customers. At that point, we didn't call requirements business analysis. That was not those names. It was the last millennium. But that was what I was doing. I was already becoming a business analyst before knowing that those words even exist. So those are very two important turning points in my career that made me become a business analyst. There's another turning point in my career that I believe it's probably a turning point for everyone, that was the COVID, right? So the pandemics.
True.
I already was very established in Brazil, very well known in the Brazilian market as a business analyst, as a professor, as a teacher. I became someone, as I like to communicate, someone who can explain this kind of stuff. And I already had my websites and my YouTube channel all in Portuguese. But during COVID, I decided to go internationally and decided to be bold and start speaking in English. And it's been a journey. It's been very nice meeting people all over the world. Be talking to you right now in the other side of the world. It's so exciting. And you can see, as you said, in my website, there are people from all over the world chatting, talking about these topics, related topics, business analysis, business architecture, project management, product management, product ownership. So a lot of interrelated disciplines that I'm really enjoying to learn and share.
I 100% agree with you. There weren't all that many positive things that came out of COVID, but one of the positive things was certainly it opened up the conversations with business architects, business analysts, like you're saying, product owners, where you actually realize you're part of a community and it's not just local. It's an international community. And one of the key things that I discovered was how similar the stories are. It's not just here in New Zealand that things happen a certain way. It is everywhere. So the frustrations that business analysts feel trying to get the requirements and the stakeholders aren't working, or they don't agree, or we've gone and rushed with a solution before we understand the problem. Those were, for me, global. And that just opened up a whole new conversation. And so I do think that online and even being able to work from home legitimately was such a bonus because it showed that we're not limited by our space anymore. And so it gives us that opportunity. So I share that with you. I think that has been a big game changer from going into the office, training small groups, to going, hang on, there's this whole world and we're part of this community and we can have conversations that go way further than just what we do in a small company at that particular time. Yeah, I definitely agree. I also think over the last year, but it's happened for many years, AI has come into the space. And as you were saying, what I really liked what you said before was you realize that your way of thinking has to change when you start looking at what the business needs are versus just programming, right? So you start asking questions and you start making suggestions, but the whole thing's different. So I'm going to ask you first a question and then I'll ask you a secondary question. But if we look at AI, there's this big hype to go, all right, and I'm talking particularly generative AI. There's obviously lots of different types of AI, but just to keep it simple for now. People go, oh, I'll just do this on AI. And for me, when you told your story around how you were a programmer, but you still needed to understand what was happening, AI is not going to give you that context. It's the human that's going to have to provide that context. AI is really good. So what are your thoughts on that? What do you think? What does AI look like for you? And what do people need to know about AI rather than thinking it's the answer to everything? It could be.
But it's definitely not the answer for everything, but it may be a tool that can be so broadly used that we are going to start using AI for almost everything. So that's the point. But that's tool. It's a different interface. It's a different way of doing things, but we still have to do it. It won't do everything for us. As you said, there are different types of AI. We are already use it to some kind of AI. So I call it distinctive AI. That AI that can look for data and try to take information from it and distinct stuff. For example, when I enter my call, I live in a condo. When I enter my condo, I put my face on a camera and it identifies that's me, that's AI. And I'm using it every day. And I'm creating a video for YouTube and it transcribes my voice into text. That's amazing, and we are using it every day. I like to use, a lot of people use it, called Grammarly. And when I'm writing, it's the text that I'm writing something wrong, especially useful for me in English because I do a lot of mistakes. And it corrects me, and it even suggests some different words for making my text clearer. So those are useful AIs that we are using every day. So we're becoming used to that. Generative AI is the new stuff that changes a little bit, and we are amazed about that. So creating new graphics, creating images, creating videos, and creating especially texts. I have been using it very much in my work for almost everything. So if I'm writing a message and I want to make that message shorter, I put that message on AI and help me to make it shorter. If I want to organize my thoughts, I can put a lot of thoughts and it will help me to organize that. Or if I'm searching for some information, I can search AI. That's probably not the best usage of AI. Use it as a Google. And surprisingly, is the way that most people is using. They are trying to use AI as a Google, and that's, I say that's not the best usage because AI hallucinates sometimes. So you should not rely on every answer it brings to you. That's not the strongest feature of this new technology. The strongest features to create is the creative part. So creating something new, that's very useful. When I'm working as a business analyst, let me give you one example that I have been using recently. I was helping an organization to redesign their process for finance. And I'm not an expert in finance. I have a high view idea, but I'm not an expert in that. And I will conduct a workshop with them to map all those processes and understand how that department works. But instead of going with a white page, I ask an AI first. Can you please provide me a list of the most common process for a finance department? And it was there. And I asked them, what are the most common KPIs? And there they are. And if I want to improve these KPI, what could be done? And it's not an answer. It's a starting point. But it's a starting point so much farther than the white page that I had before.
I know.
Right? So it's so useful. It can make our work so more productive and easily done than starting from scratch. And then after the meeting, I can come the notes of the meeting and share with AI, and AI can make summaries for me and can help me. So it's a tool that makes our life very easier and faster. It's not reliable. And what I mean is not reliable. It's for this kind of tool, Gen AI. If you try to create an image, you go make a prompt and see what happens. And you see, it's not reliable. Sometimes it works, sometimes it's not. It's the same thing for texts. So if you ask the tool, what medicine should I take if I have these symptoms, it can give you some hints. You should not rely on that. Ask a doctor, please. Right?
Yeah. Yes, I agree. And I also think with AI, look, you have to validate the information. Although I use it to help as a starter for training, just like you do, it doesn't really capture my tone of voice. It doesn't really capture me. And so a lot of the time, it saves me heaps of time in getting through let's say the housework of writing an article or preparing for training or doing that kind of stuff. But you still have to validate and verify. And this is the second point I wanted to raise around AI. In the Babok Guide, we talk about validation and verification of requirements. And it's quite an important process. And I felt, and again, I want to know what your thoughts here are, that AI can help you do the requirements, for instance, and a business analyst would essentially then focus more on the validation and the verification of the work and have a little bit more of not trying to find requirements, because there's lots of ways in which you can gather that data and that insight intelligently. So do you think that the role of, let's say, the business analyst, if they start using AI, is going to be changed? And what should that be? And do you think that there should be some rules around who is creating content for specific purposes? Like, should someone who's doing requirements actually know what requirements are, is what I'm saying. Because otherwise they just trust AI to just pump it out and don't understand simple things like that's a business requirement, but that's not a user requirement, or it's not a functional requirement, or you've forgotten the transitional requirements. Those are the kinds of things. So how would you navigate that with AI and what people are actually doing in the job?
My impression is not just for business analysis, but for any kind of work that you do by writing.
Yeah.
There is going to be an increment in the level of writing. If you take some junior assistant on an organization, like an intern, and ask them to do a report or write a document, it would be a very badly written document. You don't expect that to be.
Yes.
I'm being a nice guy here saying that's an intern job, but you know that sometimes even some guys on the senior level doesn't do a very good job in writing. And I guess we won't see that bad writing anymore, because there's a tool that helps you to do that. It's going to be a very lazy people who doesn't check if their writing is good, right? And so there's going to be tools for you to check if your writing is good. That Grammarly, I was talking about Grammarly. Grammarly helps me to write it correctly, and if I don't check if I'm using the right spelling, I'm very lazy. I'm not just using a tool that's available for me. But it's going to be wider, because this tool is not just going to suggest you correct your spelling. It's going to say you what to write as a meeting minutes. Actually, if we just transcribe what we're speaking right now, take the transcription by AI, because AI can transcribe our conversation, and put it on ChatGPT and ask ChatGPT to make a summary, it does a really good job, probably better than most interns and junior professionals. And I'm being a nice guy, not the seniors. It does a good job, right? So the level is going to rise up, because we are going to have a tool for that. Almost like before having computers to write down stuff, people had better calligraphy, and sometimes you will not read. Today we don't have this problem anymore, because everyone is using computers, so they're typing in a computer. You don't have calligraphy problems anymore. We won't have some kind of communications problems anymore, because we're going to have a AI working on that. But there's a higher level of that. So as you said, there's the voice. There's something that you want to express in your specific way. There's some understanding and some feelings that the machine is not feeling or understanding. So I think we must get used to use it, to bring our voice on that. This is starting, it makes us think, oh, we're going to be substituted. I don't think so. We are going to use the tool. We are going to be more productive, and maybe we need less people to do the work. That's a concern that I think it's fair. Or we should have more time to do stuff and use the spare time to other stuff. But we have an economical problem there.
Yeah, that is very interesting. And actually, I was watching one of these videos with Sam Altman. Do I say it right? Probably, but from OpenAI, and they were talking about job security and all of that. And it was really interesting, because obviously you never know if someone's selling you something or not. Okay, so you have to be very aware. I do think that people who are not adding value could lose their jobs. So, for instance, if you've just relied on taking notes from everyone and never actually analyzing the things, you're at risk anyway. It's not AI that's doing it. It's actually your ability. So I think that's important to separate that. And AI does highlight when you're not doing things properly a lot quicker. That can make things difficult for people. But in this interview, he was saying he thinks that it's not necessarily going to lose jobs. And as I said, let's take this with a pinch of salt, because so many coders are needed. It means you can now work on 2 projects, right? Rather than 1, because the speed at which change is happening isn't what businesses want. So in other words, everyone goes, it's off budgets, it's over time, we haven't delivered at the right time. And so the argument was, well, AI is going to help speed up the process, but it's not necessarily going to change your job. It just means you're going to be delivering faster. And I thought to myself, well, what does that mean in our field? And I actually agree with that, because now you can do requirements quicker. You can look at the next project. You can start to analyze cross projects, not just one project at a time where everyone's trying to. You can do multiple interviews. So you can use the tools far more effectively. Do I think that people will lose jobs? Potentially. I don't think we'll really truly know in the next year or 2. But I think people need to educate themselves before we truly know how powerful AI is in the workplace, because I don't think it's fully integrated into the workplace in any degree that's going to make a difference right now. And when I say right now, this year, but I could be wrong, because it's going so fast compared to what it was last year. The growth has been exponential. I think there are risks, but I also think that there are opportunities that people, if they start educating themselves and say, this is what we understand, and we can actually do work not quicker, but better. It doesn't always have to be faster. It can just be better. Yeah. And it's great for us because we don't have this horrible jobs where you got to sit there and capture one after the other and sit in meetings for hours. Like it's such a waste of a human's life. Rather let the AI do it, and you then validate it. You verify, oh yeah, that's correct. And so you have a inherent understanding and context of the business you're working in, but you're not trying to capture data, essentially, which is what a lot of BAs end up doing, or any business leaders end up doing, is trying to find data and convert that into some form of information, which takes way too long.
Yeah, and if we're changing our perspective to the future, and I believe we are, and not just the present, I believe AI will change a lot, and I'm expecting some new tools available for our kind of job. So as a business architect, you probably have a lot of blueprints that you have to manage and articulate. And when you are trying to understand what changes in the business, you have to search for a lot of different interconnections. And that's hard work to do with the tools that we have today. And probably if the organization is big enough and you have a lot of blueprints or a lot of diagrams and specifications and everything, it's very hard to find the connection between those. I believe AI will make a very nice job doing that for us, keeping those documentations up to date. If we're thinking about org charts, process charts, policy charts, system specifications, it's very hard to keep all these, I would say documentation, but they're not documentation, they're assets, right? All those business assets up to date. It's very hard. And when you're analyzing, you're usually analyzing old stuff that were used when they created a solution, but they were many times changed and it's not up to date anymore. So if I believe that we soon will have AI tools to manage those information up to date for us. And it's going to be easy for maintaining because we are going to use AI to change it. So if I want to change a process, I would ask AI, what's my process? And I bring my process. What happens if I change this task to that task and put a decision over there? And, oh, there's a business rule here. AI will tell me and say, oh, and why this business rule is there, and it brings me the justification for the business rule. What happens if I change this business rule? Run a simulation of the process and see if new bottlenecks comes. So we are going to articulate and talk to AI over all those models, and not just as we are doing today, because today I put a ChatGPT, but ChatGPT is not a specialized tool. So it's a generic tool, but we are going to have those specialized tools where we can rely on. And if it says that's the rule, that's the rule. It's not hallucinating. If it says that this rule is connected to this task, it's connected to this task because it has the information knowledge to take this kind of information. So I see a huge change in business architecture, enterprise architecture, and business analysis when these kind of tools came up for us. Managing business knowledge in a very precise way, and where we can interact those tools just chatting like we're chatting right now, using natural language. That's something I think is going to be so cool. I so look forward for this.
Yeah. And I think going back to what you said earlier was you were talking about how you were a programmer and then someone was saying, but you need to understand the business. And so essentially for me, I look at that role of architecture, analysis, strategy, various aspects using AI, but you need that kind of, so the architecture doesn't have to be the architect, but the architecture is basically governing the AI's work, the mundane work, but it's still the people that are going to have to make sure that work is correct, obviously. And so that for me means that people really do have to learn it and educate themselves in what does it mean to truly, not just how do you pass tests and how do you do certain things, but how do you actually solve problems and how do you understand how things work together. And so it's really the competencies are going to have to be peaked. Let's call it that, where you have to improve what you're doing every single day in certain areas. So your systems thinking will have to improve. So your stakeholder engagements, your ability to clarify things and then validate and verify, as I said earlier. It's very interesting because now it's not just a doing job, it's a thinking job beyond the doing. It's almost like you can use your AI as a digital twin to do the ugly work, but then you have to lift your skill level to be able to keep up with the speed of the ugly work. I don't know what the right word to use is, but you have to lift your skill level to fill that gap of the speed at which AI is delivering.
Yeah, I bet that the level of specialization and understanding of the business is going to raise. Doing an analogy with medicine, if you think about a medical doctor, let's say 60 years ago, you went to a doctor, he will touch you in some places and ask you if it was hurting or something like that. He would look in your eyes and he would put the thing to listen to your heart and try to understand, make a diagnosis for you and suggest some medicine. Today, they send you to a lab and you take a lot of exams. It's another level of medicine that we have today compared to what we had 60 years ago. Some people even say that doctors today don't touch their patients, and there are some aspects of that. But the level of understanding of how a human body works, the level of understanding how our hormones or I don't know, cholesterol and all those stuff that they take. And, I'm not a medical doctor, sorry, my example. It's not something like you can rely on me, but we can see that what a doctor knows about human body today is so much higher, so much more complex than it was 60 years ago. And that's where we are going if we are having, let's say, computers to do the diagnosis for us, right? So we have to skill our level up and we have to deal with higher complex problems, business problems. We are going to talk about business in a higher level. So if you go to a very nice hospital and the doctors open all those screens and do some scans in your body, and they're talking about medicines, and it's hard to understand. It's not easy because they're
Yeah.
in a very higher level. So I don't think the work of business architects, business managers, business analysts, anyone who is dealing with business is going to be lower level because we have AI doing the hard work for us. No, it's going to be
We're going to
higher
have to scale
level.
up. Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
going to have to scale up our
Yeah.
conversations. And we will be able to do that. Today, maybe we are just on the surface of business needs because we cannot even meet those needs, right?
Yeah.
Let's raise the
Yeah.
bar.
It's very positive. It's really positive, and it means we can do things that are less mundane and more exciting and really understand problems better and look at those kind of things rather than just doing documents. All right. So we spoke a little bit around the competencies that you see, the changes in AI. Now, as a professional, you've worked for many years now and you've got experience, and I don't think we'll cover all of that in this session. But I suppose my final question to you would be if, and this always is what I do in the podcasts, if you were to start from the beginning, right, knowing what you know today, what would you tell your younger self to do? So give yourself the most successful pathway that you could possibly give yourself. What would that look like?
I'm not sure how to answer that. I'm very happy with my pathway, and I don't regret probably nothing. It was really cool. If I could give me some tips about well, don't do that mistake because you're going to suffer. I would not have the learnings from suffering from that. If I could come to the past and give me the lottery numbers, right? I would not have lived my life. I would have.
True.
I don't think I would have a better life. I'm very glad with my life.
A lot of the conversations that I've had with people now saying, it's funny how when you get to a certain age, and I'm not suggesting you're old because you're not, you feel your sense of belonging almost later in life, it's like going through the process itself. And we spoke a little bit before this session around the pilgrimage and the different kinds of, it's almost like going through the process itself is the value. Learning as you go through the steps is valuable to the business. But if you had one young person that wants to enter the field of business, let's say business analyst, right? What would you say to that young person?
That maybe that's something I have it more clear now than I had it before, and I think makes a lot of difference in someone's life. Is target all your motions or your work to outcomes and not to outputs. And by that, don't work by just accomplishing the tasks that are defined to you. The tasks are not important very much. It's the outcomes that are important. It's the consequence of those tasks that you should understand and align with. Every time someone asks you to do something, try to understand what's the consequence that they're expecting from that. What's the outcome that they're expecting, and commit yourself to the outcome. Be an outcome-driven person, and that will make a lot of change in your career. That will make a lot of change in your enthusiasm for working, in the way motivation. So if you're just motivated to accomplish a set of tasks, that's not really very nice. But if you see the outcome in the other side, and the outcome is something that is connected to the purpose of the business and the purpose of the organization, that changes the way you work, that changes the way you drive yourself, and it will bring you more chances in your career.
That's really good advice. I like that. I think a lot of people just think if I do this, everyone will be satisfied and I can just. But if you want to actually add value at the end of the day, people must feel like something's been added to, not just ticked. One of the guys, I'm not sure who said it, he said, I like to be, he said he wants to, in his business, delight customers. That he wants them to be surprised by what they get at the end of the day. So I suppose what you're saying here is almost, if you at work, at least delight your boss at a minimum, or the project. Yeah, that's really good advice. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for the questions.
Yeah. So I think that was a really insightful conversation and some really great value. So if anyone wants to get hold of you, what is the best way to do that? I know LinkedIn is obviously streaming on LinkedIn, but that's one of the ways in which people can get in touch. But what's your best way of communicating with people beyond, this forum?
So LinkedIn is a nice place to send questions or to chat. Please connect on LinkedIn, and I love to connect. But I also have my website. It's called The Brazilian BA. On this website, there are a set of articles and videos talking about business analysis, the future of business analysis. I have been trying to structure my thoughts on that, and I describe in a series of articles what's going to be the future of business. I'm trying to explore the frontier of business analysis in some different dimensions. There are some videos trying to design how will be the day by day of a business analyst in the future. So I think that's going to be fun
Good.
as well.
Good.
And those videos are also available on YouTube if you want to subscribe on YouTube. So you'll be warned every time we have a new video. It's the Brazilian BA on YouTube.
Yeah, I have looked at those videos, everyone. So really good stuff. I should definitely go and subscribe and have a look at a minimum. I just want to thank you again for this great conversation, giving me your time and giving everybody else your time. So it was great meeting, and I think we can probably end now if that works for you, unless there's any other things you want to add.
I just want to thank you, Deirdre. It was a pleasure to be here.
Thank you.